back to another episode of Children Matter News. I'm your host, Jordan Gaskell, and with me, a proud Englishman. Now, today I want to talk to people a bit about the Fathers for Justice campaign, a bit about the fathers, obviously, who can't actually see their kids, the effects it has on the kids mentally, and of course, well, with us, obviously, there's me, an actual child who's got a bit of a situation at home where my dad's got restricted access a little bit to actually see my sisters, and obviously there's, well, proud Englishman himself is a father who is unable to see your kids, aren't you?
Well, no, I was, when my daughter was first born, they kept me away from my child for 6 months and stopped me from going to the birth of my child.
Yeah, well, you've had experience of that, though, is the point, though. You've had experience of not being able to see your own kids, so bit from the father and the child's perspective.
Yeah. I also know other people, I mean, with my sister as well, they actually kept the father out of her case to make it easier to take a child.
Yeah, it's an horrible situation. Social services, unfortunately. One thing I think we can both agree on that we've talked a little bit backstage about, that the father's normally not included in the picture of what's going on. And that is a bit of a major issue that we can agree on there.
They don't like to keep them included. It's easier for them if they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, would you like to talk a bit about your experience with it first, or you want me to talk a bit about mine, or whatever's best for you?
It's up to you, mate. Either.
Right. Well, I'll go on a bit about mine then at the moment, because I've got a situation at home at the moment. What's going on at home at the moment? My dad is in the right in this situation. Basically, all he did is confronted my mum for cheating, basically. My mum kind of kicked off at him and threw a radio at him and pulled a knife that night. It was horrible. My mum made accusations against my dad as a result of confronting her. The police have took my dad away on bail. He's on bail and he's been released now, no problem. But he can't actually go back to that house. It's the problem. He can't physically go back to the house to see. My younger sister can't get to him. My other sister hasn't seen my dad, so I do think she's been restricted, of course, of actually seeing my dad. So my dad's very restricted the ability to see his own kids, and the effect it's had on him mentally is, I mean, I remember when things were bad at home already for him, and he was trying to keep the family together just for the sake of his kids, even though he was clearly not happy with who he was with, but he's trying to keep things together for his kids, the mental effects it was having on him. I mean, at one point I just came upstairs and he was sat there in a chair just looking at the wall, more or less. He was literally just completely depressed with it all. But the mental effects it can have on people, eventually, it really is horrible. And obviously the effects this whole situation has had, and he has obviously his limits. He can see my sisters, and I think that does get to him quite a lot. You can see that it does mean something to him, I'd say. And obviously I've got limited access to my see my parents, because most of the time I can't go home because it's not exactly the most relaxing climate, so I have to go out quite a good amount at the moment. I mean, I'm not staying at home at the moment. As you can clearly see, anyone that normally watches me, this is not my normal layout. So obviously it has effects both on the kids and the parents quite badly. But the father, as what I've seen with what social services have talked to me about, with what the police have talked to me, they do have a high tendency to listen to the mother's side of it. But when the father tries to talk, they don't really have any interest in the father's defence. This is talking from what I've experienced here. They just don't seem to have any interest in what the father has to say in any of the.
From my own personal experience, like if you say anything negative about them as the father, you end up with a character assassination against you often, where they say, oh, well, they'll go through literally everything. I mean, with me personally, they brought up school records from, everyone gets in a little bit of trouble at school, and that they brought up school records and things, from when I were at school, because they couldn't find anything else.
Yeah.
Just because I was trying to pull them up on the things that they were doing wrong with me, like they actually broke the law by keeping me away from my daughter's birth. I didn't find that out until after it was too late. And with the mental health side of it, like I was kept away from my daughter for 6 months all I ate was Rustler burgers. You know, them little microwave burgers.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I had one last
And
night. I know what they are.
and I only slept once every 3 days. The rest of my time I spent on internet just trying to find out, you know, different bits of information, talking to other people, just trying to talk to other solicitors, see if I could further along my case and things like that. You know, so
Yeah.
it really takes an
What was the
impact on you.
reason, if I may, for actually keeping you from the kid? I can't see them having any valid reason to actually keep you away from your own child like that.
Well, I was arrested for a crime that I didn't actually commit, and it was proven in court that I didn't commit it. I was found not guilty and everything.
Yeah,
Um,
I understand that. That's
well,
horrible. I mean, my mum's putting accusations against my dad that she's retracted the statement against him, actually. And then she's put the statement back forward against him. She's only put these
it,
statements against him because she's been caught cheating. And it's
yeah, well,
affecting my dad quite badly.
mine wasn't even anything like false accusations. It was purely a case of mistaken identity. I live in a tower block, and well, I lived in a tower block, and one of my neighbours has had someone, you know, try and go through the door, and the police come and arrested me for it. I lived underneath this person. I got arrested for it. I got charged. It went through court, and up until the person herself actually come to court and said, "No, no, no, it wasn't him." The police and the social services, they'd done all this. You know, they'd took my child, they'd took my missus, they'd said I were a danger. They'd said that I had committed the crime when I hadn't, even though it hadn't been to court yet. And even after it went to court, they still tried to say that I'd done it,
Yeah,
even though I've
that's
been found
absolutely
not
horrible.
guilty. Like, it, but it really takes an impact on the fact that someone's saying you've done something that you know you've not as well. And even after the person had come to court themselves and said, no, 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 it wasn't him, you know, they still tried to use it against me. Like, it's not
Yeah.
great. But
Yeah, well,
that's how much they that's how much they don't take anything that a father says. Because even though I'd turned around and I'd said, well, no, it wasn't me, even though I'd said, well, yeah, I can understand that because there's a police charge there, you're going to have to investigate and things like that. But I can't understand why you're taking it as far as you are, where you said I'm not allowed to go to my daughter's birth or anything like that. You know,
yeah,
they were the things. If you've been arrested by the police and you're being investigated, then there's going to be reason there for them to want to be involved, but to purely out of spite, as it felt, to turn around and say that I couldn't go to the birth of my child and things like that. And with
yeah,
my sister, they, no matter how much the father tried, they did a DNA test because they
yeah,
tried saying that my sister, they tried saying that that wasn't the child's father. So when they'd done a DNA test and it proved that he was the child's father, and he applied to the court to be put into the case, they still refused it. So
yeah,
they kept him apart from the case, which meant that the case was only on my sister, who was suffering with mental health at the time.
yeah. I
Which,
get that completely. The point is, though, I mean, you had 6 months, is it? You couldn't see your kid. Six
yeah,
months,
six
was it?
months.
Yeah, now 6 months, that was a horrible experience for you, obviously. It would have been absolutely horrible. And then you've got people out there, though, as well, that haven't been able to see their kids in years. Some that have not been able
Yeah,
to in so many years. Imagine the pain that it would be for that, because I can't possibly imagine it getting any better. And this is an issue in society that doesn't get talked about enough. It really is. The worst part is the schools don't help, because I obviously I'm not long out of the education system. I was in college last year. We have to do tutorial where you learn about extremism and that. And one of the lists under the groups for extremism, they actually listed Fathers for Justice as extremist
yeah,
in the groups in schools. I don't see anything extreme about what we're doing. I do not see anything extreme whatsoever about what we're doing right now. This is a serious issue. This is a massive problem. If a father can't see his own kids, that's not extremism, fighting to see your own kids. I think that's something we can all agree on, though.
there's been multiple accounts in the news, like over the years. I think there was one not long ago that was not too far from me. The father hadn't seen his child for a certain amount of months because the social services had taken them. And then when he finally did lose them in court, he walked out into the motorway, and got hit by a lorry. There was another one not too long ago that a woman lost her kids in court and died of a broken heart in court. Like, that's what the coroner put on a death certificate. She had an heart attack there, and then when the judge turned around and said, your kids are going for adoption, she had an heart attack there in court. The coroner's actually put it down as, dying of a broken heart. Like, so
it does have that effect. It's that big of a deal. The emotional and mental impacts, there's no comprehending it. As much empathy as I do try to show, no matter what, I will never be able to fully understand what it feels like to have your kids taken off you. And there's no way I could possibly feel that pain. And the sympathy, the empathy, the pure empathy I have for people. I mean, just 6 months for you, that must have been one of the most painful parts of your life. I think I certainly would argue that would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was really difficult. But to go through it for longer than that, for people that are still doing it, that ain't got the children and that are still fighting, that's a pain that I don't think I'd be able to imagine. That because that 6 months, there was an end to it for me. For other people, there's not an end to it, and they can't see an end, and the basically just still fighting.
It's not just the fathers as well that get mentally affected with this. A lot of aspect that's left out is the children themselves. The children obviously not being able to see their own father and all. It does have a massive effect on how they are brought up, how they end up in life. And it's missed out a lot. I mean, my dad's not been able around now for a few weeks because of what's gone on. Situation at home, for example. My sister Leah, my youngest sister, try and talk to her now. She'll kind of just look up at you and kind of just look back down and she just won't speak now. So it does have its effects on the children as well. The problem is the social services. We do get an occasional one or two that are all right, I'd say, but for the most part, they just don't seem to care about the actual kids.
It's a wage.
Care about the kids.
It's just a wage to them. It's just another 9 to 5. They go to work, they get the paycheck, they go back. They don't lose any sleep over what happens.
Yeah, you might get one or two that are all right. And I used to put a lot more sympathy to them. But I mean, with what's going on at the moment, I'm involved with social services at home. The things that have been reported, the things that have been mentioned, and all I keep getting back at now from social services, well, we just want to help your mother for mental health. Any complaints my sisters put forward or anything they said, that they're not really fussed about. Anything I say, they're not really fussed about. Anything my dad says, they're not really fussed about. They just don't really seem to care about any issues that seem to be raised or anything. I'd argue they just don't care. This is a big problem with a lot of social service workers. As you said, a lot of them see it as a rage, and it's an horrible thing that these are the services that are supposed to be there to actually help our children, actually here to help us, but they don't. They're just there for the profit.
Back to what you were saying before about like how people view it and the fact that people need to hear it more. We need to do this more. Well, people need to do this more in general, because it seems like people are cultured now into thinking that when you've got the social services involved with you, there must be a reason, like that you must have done something, or there must be something wrong with you, and well, if you're not allowed to see your kids, you must have done something. If the parents say, that type of thing, that I think that needs to be broken.
Yeah. Well, the big issue with us, we actually tried to get help from that area. It was our last resort for my dad. He actually tried to get help from social services. He contacted Startwell because I was already with them twice before. This was the third time I was being referred, but seems to keep coming back. They've made it main social services. My dad went to them to try and get help, and they've just turned on him and sided with my mother with this. And it's the thing is that people believe that it's a professional service that they're actually in the right, as you've just said, but they're not. They're not in the right in this situation. They're not in many situations. There's so many times that they've let the British people down. And how many children they've let down, how many fathers. The list goes on, and even mothers, because there is mothers that's happened to as well. It does happen both ways, but I do believe there's fathers are less mentioned. And the problem is it's condemned, this type of idea in schools, as I said, learning about extremism. One of the extremist groups that's listed that I remember seeing in college last year, Fathers for Justice. That was actually on the list of extremist groups. It was classed as far right. It was classed as within the schools. That I don't see anything extreme about this. Why are we condemning people fighting to see their own children? How people can find this to be morally wrong, I don't see how anyone can have a problem with someone fighting to see their own kids. Now people can side with these services just hearing their story because they have the title of social work or whatever. They believe that, oh, they must be in the right.
They side with these services because they make it so hard for you to actually try and talk about what goes on.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're in the family courts and that, you can actually get gagging orders and things like that put on you, so you can't talk about your case.
Exactly.
And then there's the stigma around it, so you always think, oh well, people are going to think this now, and so you don't again want to talk about it just because of the way I was saying before, that people now view it in society like, oh well, you must have done something, so you don't want to really talk about it then either.
Yeah, that shouldn't be the stigma of society, though. That the fact that they automatically believe the story of social workers, they shouldn't do that. Because there is so many people I've met, and I didn't know about all these stories a few years back, obviously. I mean, I went to a demo. It started off when I got involved more. I think it was when I went to Manchester to a demo. I heard, don't know if you've heard of Jimmy the Hat. I think everyone's heard of him more in our group by this point.
Yeah.
Heard him start speaking about some children who's tried to get help, and I've got more involved. I've met Katie. I've met, started watching Children Matter News and all that. The list goes on of where I've got involved here. And when you've found all these stories and when you hear both sides of the argument, not just the social worker now, not just what the social workers pulled up from years and years ago, what they've twisted, because they do twist things, they really do. When you start to see both sides of it, it really makes you think, and it really gives you a bit of a perspective into. I mean, I've talked to fathers before who've lost their kids, and it's some of the stories they tell. You can just see that some are literally they're ready to cry with it. It's the effects it has. It's I can't possibly comprehend it, as you can clearly see here. There's nothing I could possibly say that would show the emotion that they are going through. I mean, just my dad with restricted access, more or less. So it's not officially restricted. It's just hard for him to actually get there with the restrictions in place in terms of going home. Just with that, the effects it's had on him has generally broke my heart. And that's just a few weeks, and that's not completely removed access. Well, on the other hand, with on the other hand, where people who've not had seen the kids in years and that, how they keep going in life, I don't know how. The effect it takes in anyone who can keep going with that takes beyond strength, and people who are actually still out there fighting for their kids after years, I have nothing but respect for the strength it takes to do that.
I struggled with 6 months, me personally. Like it to do it longer than that, it'd have brought me. I don't think I'd be here now anyway. Like I, a lot of people that don't get to see their kids, like the ones that I know anyway, they turn to drugs at some point, or something else, to try and basically take the minds or attention or something, away from it to try and heal the pain or whatnot. Or basically self-destructs straight after.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Completely. It's kind of like one of the example you was going on before with the lorry and all that. There, so somebody went outside the motorway for the front of that, because there has been a lot of the suicides. I would say there's quite a good amount of them that have linked directly to this, and depression, anxiety. These things are often as a result of losing the kids. I know quite a few people in the movement that have suffered from mental disabilities such as that, as a result of course, yeah, the effects of not being able to see your own kids. And I obviously don't have kids yet, as I said, but I do want to in the future. I do want to generally have kids when I'm older, and if anyone ever took them away from me, I I don't know how I could keep going. To be honest, how to keep fighting for that. Kids, when you have your own kids, there's nothing more wonderful than having your own child, you having your own kids, bringing life into this world in that way. There's nothing more beautiful than that, and having that taken from you, it's really there's no way I can possibly comprehend it. There's no talk about it on any medias. There's no talk about how it affects people. On the BBC, you hear nothing about how this affects the fathers or the children. On Sky News, nothing. ITV, nothing. RT, nothing. It gets no mention when it should. We need to start talking about this again. This is something we need to start talking about again.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find that news story that I'd mentioned before.
Yeah, it's alright. Just have a look. I'm gonna have a look through the comments, see if there's anything I haven't answered. Let's see. Yeah, we take it out on ourselves daily. Oh, it is. See, this is going further into what I just said. Really, it's a self-destructive thing. It makes you turn on yourself. Oh, thank you for the congratulations on the promotion. It's a nice little comment there. Yes, we do need our own courts. I agree completely, Adrian. We having our own courts would be a start. Obviously, EU courts are certainly not helpful, but the family courts. The problem is, it's not enough done against this. There was a lot of corruption, I'd argue, in the family courts. To be honest, they're very one-sided. It's nothing that's really tackled. I don't see anybody doing anything about that hardly, other than activists like ourselves. I don't see any parties really fighting against the family courts. And I'm going to push for my party actually to try and do more against the family courts, because it is something that needs tackling.
Well, it's not the one that I was on about before. I'm just about to share it into WhatsApp group so you can see it.
Yeah.
But I found one here that was last year. After the courts banned him from seeing his children, 3 days later, wrote suicide notes and killed himself. You know,
Look, I know the effects of that much negative mental health. I mean, I'm more open about it than I used to be. It took quite a few years before I became this open about it. But I myself I'm quite open about it. I am a survivor of suicide myself. I have tried before with depression, and I have suffered my own in life with things. It's a point where I felt that low, so I understand how it can affect somebody, how it can be that negative towards someone mentally. I understand what it's like to be in that negative state of mind and not being able to see your kids. Anything that could probably pull you out, seeing them again, and when it can be years and years of not seeing them. It's very hard. I mean, right there, the story that's now on screen. Dad, 38, killed himself just weeks after court banned him from seeing his daughter. No, a victim of the family courts for you.
I mean, just to imagine what we're going through that guy's head, like that's he must have just felt like he had no else left now. Like, you know, that's
Yeah, well, the
that's
thing is,
horrible.
children are a part of you. How, in a way, I see people as immortal because the reason why we are immortal, we have kids, and when we have kids, a bit of us go along with that kid. So we live
Yeah,
forever within our children. And once, if you lose your children, you effectively lose a bit of yourself. You do lose a bit of yourself when you lose your children, sadly. It's like a piece of you is missing. And it's this is the type of thing that the family courts are allowing to happen. And there's not enough people standing up against this, and I think it's not an issue with the cause. I think it's the fact that no one talks about it. I think it's no more. You don't get any mention of it anywhere on mainstream media.
it
I just mean Rob Smith's comment then. So,
go on.
there's a law. Actually, more of these courts will start appearing naturally. Yeah, agreed, Rob. Absolutely. Yep, entanglement part of our own soul. Just as I was saying, kids are always going to be a part of who we are, and it's when you lose your kid, you're losing a part of yourself. It's going. I'd imagine it to be a feeling of emptiness more than anything. I'd probably imagine it to be. Obviously, I can't have the exact experience because I haven't been through it like you have, and I couldn't. You must have been very strong to get through what you did. It's a very hard thing. And obviously, some of the people in this movement who haven't seen the kids in years now, they're a lot stronger than I admit I could possibly be. Because losing your kids like that, it takes so much.
If alienated parents feel devastated, imagine how the children feel traumatized for life. Well, I imagine
Yeah,
it's like you know, being
four
taken away
years.
from your parents or something. It's not going to be, or not seeing your parent for a long period of time. It's not something you're going to forget about, is it? Like,
Yeah. It's the children as well. I want to go more into the children now. 'Cause we've talked about the fathers part of this. I want to go into the children a bit on this. Obviously, yours was only 6 months old. Luckily, at that age for your child, I don't think they really. Obviously, it's still upsetting, obviously, nevertheless. But luckily, I don't think they'll remember the absence
more
really on their
upsetting for
effects.
me than my child, really.
Yeah, but still, obviously, if it was longer, imagine if it was years. For example, that child without the father, that would affect them. And how many children out there who haven't seen their father for years now? And the problem is as well, it's a bit of a problem. Some children can't actually see the fathers because the mother doesn't allow it in some situations. This is a situation because the mother doesn't like the father, so she doesn't let the father see the kids and presses all sorts against him. That type of thing. That's why is that allowed? Because it is a problem and it does happen quite a lot. But I'm so sickened by the fact that this gets no publicity, to be honest. It really doesn't. I'm generally sickened by it.
I could be
It
wrong,
gets
but I
no
think
mention.
it's something to do with the fact that the woman gives birth to the child, so the woman's favoured in court, so the child should always be with the mother.
Yeah, but the
Do you get?
problem is that the mother's not always the best out of the two, and it's the problem. The mother could be absolutely horrible, and the father would just, and the children could even openly say they love the father. But it seems the kids, they're only children, they don't really get listened to because of their age. And then when it comes to the situation with father and mother, as you said, seems the mother gave birth. They also has to think, well, the mother has rights to do what she wants. The father matters too. It's still his children. It's as much his responsibility as the mother's. The father's rights, the father's emotions, his say on this matters. But it doesn't is the problem, and it should. It needs to start to matter.
Yeah, it definitely needs to start something. It a child's 50-50 DNA. Like, it's never just one person's DNA, you know. So
Yeah,
for one person to take control over a child like that, and turn around and say, oh well, I don't like your dad, you can't see your dad, or you know your own personal opinion, and rob that child of actually part of the life. I mean, a birthday or something like that, a child of like 4, 5, 6, 7 year old onwards, they're not going to forget that they didn't see the dad or the mother or the brother or sister on the birthday,
Yeah.
or Christmas, or that's something that's going to stay with them for forever.
Yeah, it always will affect them. I mean, even if they're too young to even realise the father's there, still even having his presence, when you think about it overall, does have an effect on the child. 6 months, in comparison to some people, might not be the largest, but it is still a lot of time. No matter what, it's not discrediting the 6 months that you had to go through, though. I mean, 6 months, a lot, as I said, must have been horrible. And just missing the birth, I couldn't possibly imagine it, as I said. It does have its effects on both you and the child. And children with two parents, I believe, they need love and compassion. A child needs love, it needs support, compassion. Children need, obviously, time from the perspective of a child, myself. And when you have an absence of presence of that in a child, it does cause its effects in the long run. The mother's normally sad with, even if she's right or wrong, as I've said. I remember one guy, I was talking to him, it was about 9 months back now, this conversation was. Some guy I met online who actually messaged me. Not going to name him off, so I don't remember his name anyway, but it's probably best not name him, because I don't know if he's comfortable with me going into too much with this. But
Yeah.
what it was, he was basically saying that he split up with his girlfriend, basically. When they split up, they had one, I can't remember if it was a daughter or son, but basically they had mental disabilities themselves, the child. So that's why the child wasn't listened to in this. They had a few disabilities themselves. So the child wasn't listened to because of that. The child was about, I guess, 10 years old, the child. Child wasn't listened to as a result of that. Because of the fact that they had disabilities. That's the excuse the court made. Although the child did openly say that they feel safer with the father and that they're happier. And the child also openly said about some very, let's just say, unkind things that their mother did, quite along the abusive scale, I'd say. The child said that basically that the mother had hit him on one account, for example. It was all along those lines anyway. And the mother still has full custody, and the father wasn't allowed custody for months. Now he's allowed about 1 day a week, I think it's allowed, but it changed. But it was weeks and weeks just not being able to see the child at all. And it did affect the child. It upset the kid quite a lot. And the kid's even said to his father since that he's upset about it, but there's nothing he can do.
Another is they make it so difficult for you to, they make it really hard. So if you're going for like, so say the mother's keeping you away from your child, if you work her out like that, you might not be entitled to like legal aid, which means you have to fund the entire court cases, yourself, and not
Yeah, not everyone
everyone's
can
got that
afford
type
that.
of money. Not
Yeah, a
everyone's got
lot of
that
people
type of
don't.
money in that. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, the things that they do push towards you really is going off your point here. It's the things they push against you that you've got to try and fight against, because what they'll dig up from years and years ago that they found valid. I mean, you've said that they bring up the school reports and that for you. What relevance
Yeah.
does that possibly have to how you are a father now? It has no relevance, the things they throw at you, but they'll throw it at you and say under a technicality, maybe this is bad, you did this, you did that. They don't really care about how many years ago it was. They don't care about the person you are now. They just want dirts on you.
They just want to build you up into a person that you're not. They want to make it seem that something that you're not. Like, so anything that you could have done or anything that you have done. I mean, I used to wag it a lot at school. That's what they were trying to use against me.
Yeah, well, no one's perfect in schools. I mean, I think everybody's wagged to school. Come on, let's not kid ourselves. I think everybody here has done that. Even I admit I've done so before. Who hasn't, to be honest? Let's not kid ourselves. No, I don't think anyone in this world, more or less, hasn't done that for the most part.
But that's what they kept trying to use against me. They kept bringing it up, and the fact that when teachers would try and get me to do things, like go into lesson, I'd just walk away.
Yeah,
So
that doesn't mean you're going to be a bad father. That means you was misbehaved in school. That doesn't mean that you're a bad father, though. This is the thing that I hate about social. So I hate people in general that do this, but social services, was the effect what they do as a result of it. They twist things. They change the stories. They're manipulative. This is why I have to record any presents with anything like this or anything that I say to them. Because of that, you have to record everything. It's mandatory. Record everything before they change what you've said.
well,
It's like they
I think
analyze what you say to
I
a
think the
point
only
where they can
reason.
pick.
Sorry, go on.
They can just pick basically different things that they can turn negative. They twist your words to kind of analyze what you've said, and then just pick out all the negative and kind of suppress the positive things to try and find something on it.
Yeah. Well, I think the only reason I'm actually back with my daughter is because whenever a social worker was around me, I recorded them and I let them
Yeah.
know. I let them know I were, and they try and say, "Oh, well, you don't have my consent to." And on more than one occasion, I'd have to bring it up, on the internet, that I have every legal right to record you. There was only one time in a private meeting in the social services building where I weren't allowed.
Yeah.
Well, I still was allowed it to be recorded. I was allowed to get the recording that they'd done, but I weren't allowed to record it myself.
Yeah, well, this is why you need to record yourself for. I mean, we all know that the videos can be easily manipulated. I mean, the BBC, for example, have an habit of editing videos, changing what's actually been said and done. I mean, for example, in the American elections, I remember one video when you saw how they actually changed what Trump said and all that in it. The BBC of that. The BBC were manipulative enough with video editing. That's a proof that why you need your own recording of it, not somebody else's. Same goes with the social services. The video is not always the most reliable, though. This is why it's important you record it yourself. I have to do it a lot. I just normally when I record things, I record mainly just the audio for the most part, mainly for storage reasons. Cause I've got limited storage on this phone, but I do record the audio and all that. You can tell who's there. You can tell what the conversation. You can tell what has and hasn't been said. But it's the only choice you have now.
Well, once I'd actually started recording them and they realised that I weren't going to stop, they actually refused to speak to me, and they would only talk to either my solicitor or my girlfriend.
They're not allowed to do that, though, are they? They need to talk to you. Your voice matters, and you have the rights to record for your own protection.
So any contact I had with the social worker, I had to have through my solicitor. So if the social worker had a question, they asked my solicitor, and then my solicitor asked me. Like they didn't actually want to. They did an assessment. That was the only time I spoke to the social worker when they did my assessment. They didn't ring my phone. They didn't have appointments at my house. I never got any court dates off them or like that. I never got any letters. Everything that was given to me information-wise was from my missus and the solicitor. They once they realised I were recording them, they just refused all contact with me.
Yeah, well, this is the problem with social services as well. I mean, I've tried to get in contact with them, and the problem is it's annoying enough. They ring me on a private number. That's annoying, so I can't ring it back. So I have to phone the main office every time, and then they tell my worker to phone me back. And then they phone me on a private number. It rings about twice. It buzzes twice, and then it just stops. I don't know why it's doing that. Well, that's what it's doing with that number. And on Friday, I phoned up twice asking them to put me back in contact because the fact that it's just not ringing. She's supposed to be ringing me on Friday about 3 o'clock area, for example. By about 3:30, I've had nothing, so I've had to phone them up and get them to phone me. And then on Monday, I've told them reschedule for Monday. Then because it was getting a bit late that day. And obviously, it's Monday today. I've still not got anything yet, and I highly doubt I'm going to get anything through this day. I'm very doubtful I'll get anything through this day back from them because they're not interested in what I said. I mean, when I talked to them about obviously my situation where I can't stay home half the time because it's not exactly the safest environment, they said, well, you're over 16, so you can move out anyway, so it's not really an issue. And I'm just thinking to myself, though, I'm over 16, so I can just move out. It's not really as easy as that, is it? They don't care what the people living there, the children, think. But although I am obviously a teenager, I mean, I'm 17. Obviously, I am one of the older between my two sisters. I have the option of moving out. You can't really tell someone who's been concerned and all that about home. Well, you can just move out, so it's not really your issue. That's not what you should really say. The social services don't care about the kids in this.
Yeah. Sorry, my daughter started shouting then just at the end of that. I missed what you were saying on that last bit.
Oh, don't worry. Well, basically, I was just saying the fact that they've told me, social services, I can just move out, so it's not really an issue for me. 'Cause I'm over 16. I'm still living there. I'm still technically my mum's son, and I am still under 18 though. I have the rights to voice my own concern. They've talked to me once so far, but this idea, well, you can just move out. It's not as easy as just move out as well. I mean, I still have two sisters that I want to be safe, that I do worry about. I still have mental health myself. I'm with CAMS for mental health, and I recently finished therapy with Edit. So I have my own mental health as it is, and I have problems. And obviously, it's not a very nice environment at home, and obviously, constantly moving around. I go home for a day or two, and then I see my dad once a week. And then, of course, at the moment, most of the week I'm spending at someone else's house, obviously. I've been staying at my girlfriend's because it's the only choice I really have, because it's just not a relaxed or safe environment at home. It really isn't. But they just don't care. They really just don't care. I mean, I can't believe when they told me that. Well, you can just move out because you're over 16. I couldn't believe that's what happened when I've told them about the concerns at home.
I was homeless at 17 years old, and it still took me over a year to find a property. Like, it's not as easy as just like moving out and getting another place. Like, do they not realise that?
I don't think they care. I mean, it's that someone else has said. Hold on, let me find the comment now. I believe most social workers have never loved in their life. They come across cold and unfeeling. No real care for the children. Oh, what's happened? Oh no, it's green now. Thanks, Katie. No real care for the children if they could.
Jordan, your volume's just gone down. You might need to unplug your headphones and plug them back in because the volume's just gone.
I thought that might have been my phone, that then.
Jordan, try coming out.
I don't know who just rang me.
You're back. You're all right. Don't worry.
Yeah, someone rang me. Sorry about that. I'll check who that is in a bit. I don't know who that just rang me. Unknown number as well. I'll check that in a bit. The point going on to what I was saying though, the idea of just move out, that's our system. There's not enough support for just move out like that. There really isn't. Obviously, I have my own savings best I can, but as you said yourself, you was homeless around that age. It's not as easy as just that. And social services generally just do not care.
I just find it amazing that they've turned around and said, well, just move out. You know.
Yeah. I didn't believe that. I hear all these stories, and I used to think at one point, I won't deny, I used to think that, well, maybe some things aren't fully right me, and maybe there's something, even on the sides that I do listen to, I thought in areas, well, there must be some sort of reason. There must be a bit more to it. Social services can't all be that bad. I mean, this is the first time I've been directly involved with social services. I usually get put with Startwell. And that's what they've turned around and said. That's what they've turned around and said. I couldn't believe my own ears when I heard that. And the fact that I've been messed around to get in contact with them. The things have come out. I have talked about some things when I was a kid, what my mother has done, because she has. I'm sure my mother does need some sort of help herself mentally. I will admit that, and I agree with social services there. But it still doesn't mean it's the safest environment, and it doesn't make it fair what's happening with my dad. To be fair here, I mean, he's currently paying for a house that he's not living with. He's paying for all the bills of the house. He's paying for every penny of it. He's the only one working, and he has been the only one paying all this for over 20 years. But he has to pay it right now while he's not living there.
So
it's horrible.
He has to pay it. He has no option but to pay it. Like,
well, it's that, or my sisters obviously will have no electricity, no house, or anything like that. So
Yeah.
it's his only choice he has. And my mum refuses to. He's offered to basically buy my mum's half of the house, but she's refusing at the moment. So yeah, she keeps delaying it to a point where I don't think she will. She proves me wrong. She proves me wrong with this, but I highly doubt she will. She'll keep trying to delay it. He obviously, he's got a situation where he wants to look after my sisters because they're living there, so he has to pay it for them. But it's not fair on him. It's not fair on him whatsoever that he's paying all this. I mean, he's living at someone else's house off a suitcase, more or less, is his situation. He's living out of a suitcase bag in his mate's house. That's all he's got at the moment, while he's paying all his bills for a house he doesn't even get to go inside. That's the situation I'm in with home at the moment.
That sounds horrible. That.
Well, it is. It really is. I mean, I wonder, and neither of my parents have exactly been there most of my life. My dad has been the last few months when he's realised how bad things really are. It's took him long enough, but it's better too late than never, and I do appreciate that. My mother, as part of these allegations against him because she was caught cheating, as I said, that's why this has all happened. She's been caught cheating. That's why she's thrown all these things at him and all that, and blamed him of all sorts of different things now. But she even retracted the statement and then put these statements back against him after retracting them, because the fact that he started to push for the house again. Because he's in his rights to simply send her a message and say that he can't afford to obviously do that, and that he wants to either buy her half or she pays him the other half of the house value. So it works both ways. She either pays him half the house, or he pays her half the house value. It works either way. That's fair. Because the house is in both their name. That's the problem. Even if he pays for all of it, it's in both their name. So that's the situation I have at home at the moment, and the effect it's having on him is horrible. Social services, he's tried to talk to himself, but they're not really interested in his side of it. All they seem to care about on it is my mum's mental health. And I'm not saying I don't care about my mum, of course, but you have to care about my sisters kind of matter as well. I matter. My dad matters. This one-sided approach that they have again, I've had enough of it. I can't stand social services for it.
It seems that that's what they do. Like, like they pick a side and they stick with it. Like,
yeah. I mean, they're not even doing the job properly. I mean, the idea, the phone me up, well, we've checked, everything's fine, they've got food in the fridge and all that. I can literally just go on Facebook and see that the last 2 days they've just been living off takeaway. There's food in the fridge, it doesn't mean it's being eaten.
Yeah.
That type of thing. They don't check proper. They take the side of whoever best suits them. They don't actually do proper checks. They don't actually care. You can tell that they generally are careless. There's no profit in it from them. They don't care. My sister's a bit old for adoption now. One's sounds good, bad that I don't know the exact age of my sister's. One's about 12, 13, the other's about 9, 10. Basically, that both of them are a bit by that age. It's normally they don't get adopted around that age. That's why social services, I'd say, don't want to do anything here. That's why they don't want to get involved, because there's no profit in them from. That's why they're just trying to dismiss it, say everything's fine, and leave. I'm trying to report things to them when I've got concern, and I obviously keep things notified. Surprisingly, the only service that are mainly doing anything to help me at the moment are CAMS, because they're recording a lot of it and mentioned a lot of concern. They even got the police to meet me on one occasion with things that I've brung up. But in terms of the actual social services, they just don't really seem to care. The police seem to care a bit more. That's helpful. But, well, depends which officers they send. Half the time the police care, half the time they don't. Depends which officers that talk to me.
I'm not a very big fan of the police myself.
Well, I don't. I've had enough, because that night, obviously, my mum's thrown a radio. She's pulled a knife. That night, when she did that, after my dad confronted her for cheating and all that, as a result of that, obviously, he's left her be. A few hours later, she's come upstairs when he's trying to sleep and started kicking off with him. And when he's tried to talk to her, that's why a result thrown a radio and said it's okay because it's my radio anyway, and pulled a knife. But the police have took my dad because my mum's accused him of assault, which He didn't do, no. Well, what the story was that he caught her with a kitchen cupboard, which is easy to. You can catch someone with a kitchen cupboard drawer anytime. It's easy to knock someone. My girlfriend's caught me with things before now. It doesn't mean she's physically attacked me, does it? It's an easy thing to do, and that's what she's accused him of. And she's accused him of rape, which the most interesting thing on that statement, the clothes and all that, what she's told everyone that he did it in. She's literally there on TikTok videos dancing around seductively, and I wouldn't imagine she'd keep those clothes after that and all that and be dancing around showing off her body to everyone all the time on the videos online. I don't like speaking bad of the woman, but it doesn't really add up as a rape victim, that to me. When you're literally there showing off your body to everybody and all that, revealing more. I mean, you'll see what I mean if you ever. I'll show you the profile roughly sometime. You'll see what I mean. She, yeah. Let's just say pushes it a little bit with how much she reveals. I mean, one of it, she even had her old TikTok account removed because of the fact that she revealed a little bit too much of herself. Let's say, I mean, it comes her old TikTok account after even say no under 18s on it. It got that bad because how bad it was. She's horrible. To put simply, but what's happened? Because my dad's confronted her for cheating, she's blamed him on all these things. So the police have took my dad that night. And left my mum, the woman who pulled the knife and threw a radio. She was left with my sisters in that house, my young sisters. They left that woman with my sisters, thinking that was okay.
So she's
pulled a knife, she's thrown a radio,
and she's assaulted your dad, and your dad got arrested.
Yeah, because she accused him of rape and assault. As soon as she told the police that he's done this, they took him. Which I understand why they'd have to take him for the accusations put, but they left my mum in the house with my sisters after that. My younger sisters were left in that house overnight with that.
I can't get my head around that situation. That just seems like just a wow.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Why my mother was left in that house? Why they sided with her that night when she did all that? I can't comprehend it. I can't possibly comprehend it. You see why I have no respect for the police or the social services here? Why I don't like the police, sir. That's what the police did. Why should I have any faith in
them? They've got their... I don't think it would be much relevance to your case, but with mine it would. They have a multi-agency task force, where they can share information, really easy about people, through services. So like the police, like midwives, health visitors, social workers.
The point is the social workers are only doing a quick check. I mean, I remember once they told me there's no damages to that house, everything was okay. I've gone in a few days ago. There's literally, you can see all this wallpaper scratched up in the living room and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the social services don't actually care. That's the problem. They generally don't care. I'm trying to get in contact with them to say things. They're just horrible getting in contact with. They don't have any interest in what I have to say.
They don't really go with anything unless it fits with what they're saying already.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're going to validate what they're saying, they'll listen to you then. But if you're not, if you're going to turn around and say, well, actually, what you're saying is wrong, this is what's happening, they're not going to listen. They don't.
Unless it suits their own agenda. They have an agenda. That's the problem. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to be neutral in this. But they're not. They have their own agenda.
How they could even be partial, I really don't know. As soon as they come in, directly the blame is shoved onto someone. Like that, it's the first thing they do when they get involved is like, oh well, you're the worst person, you need to go away. Like that, it's it's the sort of It's same with the police. Like when they get involved, like in a situation, like they come in, well, I think you're the worst person, take a side, and that's not remaining impartial. Like,
yeah, there's a big problem. I will admit I'm going to have to go in a bit, so I'm going to have to start wrapping up in a minute because I've got some more things I need to do today myself. But yeah, got a lot to do at the moment. Admitted, but obviously I've won an election recently. I'm the Young Independent Chairman of UKIP now, so it's a bit of a, that's quite a lot to do.
Oh yes.
But I'll start wrapping. Oh, thank you. Yeah, hard election. But with this situation, to start wrapping up, the general point I'd like to leave it with, for the most part, my last regards on this, or my finishing remarks on this, it's as easy as this. Social services I think they need massive reform if they are going to continue existing, so they're actually impartial. But this idea of just immediately saying he's in the wrong, she's in the wrong, do this, do that, just throwing people away and not actually listening to both sides of it. They need to actually show sympathy to both sides, not just pick a side, whoever you like best. Because that's what they do. They pick a side of whoever they think is best.
That's that's bang on that, mate. I think I'd just like to ask people for look into things a bit more. Try and get a bit more knowledge on the things. Look into the cases that have been reported in the news, or people that do talk about it. I mean, there's enough videos of people like on Children Matter, that have talked about the cases and that.
Yeah. Well, you're doing amazing, lads. Yeah, be happy to be on again. Well, to finish it off then, well, as you were saying, best option probably go on Children Matter News. You can see all about this and keep updated, keep in the loop of the situation. And yeah, really, just make sure like, subscribe, and share this video around. Help raise awareness with us. That'll be all for this episode. Thank you.